according to a recent Gartner study, 40% customers would prefer most of their post-pandemic interactions to remain virtual. And key account management is on the top of the radar for a lot of the CSOs, CROs in various organizations. The environment and the key account management role are getting quite complex and quickly evolving as well. And the key aspect here is technology is going to be a key differentiator and an enabler for key account management going forward. So through this Shift series, we're bringing together experts from various organizations who have embarked on this journey, who have had their share of learnings, and they're here to share it with the rest of us. My guest today is Anis Merchant. He's the EVP Global Growth with Course 5i. Welcome, Anis. Really nice to have you with us here.
No, thank you, Karthik. It's a pleasure and happy to share my perspectives on this interesting topic, which is a near and dear one for me.
Thank you. So Anis, to start off, so how did you actually identify the need to adopt a digital approach to key account management in Course 5i?
Karthik, when you think about digital and when you think about account management, it's an interesting conversation today. Digital has become a misnomer for everything in the last 2 years because of the way the shift has happened because of the pandemic. But our journey actually started way before the pandemic, actually. This started way back in 2017 within our organization, where we saw that the focus on driving account management principles and account management practices were critical for the organization. So what we did, and specifically when I was running the entire sales and client organization, my focus was, okay, what is the optimum process to drive that? Yeah. So we established the process first. I'll share it here openly. While we didn't have a large set of accounts, we did have a good value accounts, but our focus was going deep rather than going wide with the number of accounts. So when you go deep, you need to understand those accounts in its innate capabilities. So what we did is we started doing a lot of this work offline. When I talk about offline, it was largely Excel. But what we did as an organization, we institute the process, we institute that governance, we understood the value of account management within the organization, not only within the sales and the client-facing organization, but within our operations, within our marketing, and we got the entire organization rallying behind those accounts. Once we saw that, it was working out, it was the accounts which were going through that process, we were seeing the upside. We said, okay, now we need to scale this. Yeah. Now we need to go ahead and drive this. And luckily for us, when we were evaluating different platforms, we do use a Salesforce automation platform. So, we were looking, we don't want to go ahead and drive another technology, which is another piece of technology. How does it seamlessly integrate within the ecosystem? And that's where we were evaluating different digital technologies. And that's how we came across y'all. And it's been easier for us more than anything else. Why? Because we almost had the same slivers of the usage, ironically, in being done offline. So the transition was easy. But you spoke about the digital account management, right? Now, while this is one way of managing your account and going deeper in accounts, but the concept of digital account management has completely transformed in terms of the perspective. If you really look at it today, many clients, want to meet you virtually, as you rightly said. Yes. They don't want to meet physical. So earlier the issue was my sales team would say, hey, we are doing a lot of offline conversations. It's difficult to translate it online. And that's where we enable them digitally through phone, through iPad, whatever they could use, or their computers, that they could go ahead and use that. Now, when things are happening digitally, where the conversations, the engagements, and it's no longer just on emails or on Zoom or on Teams, it's on variety of platforms, whether you look at LinkedIn or whether you look at variety of platforms. So how do you not only drive those engagements, but also drive intelligence and relationship at a larger scale? So that digital account management has completely transformed, and it continues to evolve.
Yes.
I'm not saying we are experts in that. We are also learning because things are evolving at a much rapid pace. Buyers have changed their behaviors in a significant way. There are many people now can participate in the buying decision, which
True.
was never the case before.
True.
Earlier, it was, the classic 7 different types of
Yes.
people who would get involved, but there are more now personas who are coming in. So the account management from a digital is completely transforming, and it's becoming critical for organizations to leverage technology to enable that.
That's very nicely put, and it was really good that you were sharing that so candidly on how ready you guys were, and how you went about doing this. And rightly said, I think it is evolving also. So it's not that what you've done is the way it is going to be, right? So it's constantly learning as you go, like they say. So so this actually requires a significant shift, the way we look at it from a mindset standpoint, from a process standpoint, from an approach standpoint. So when any organizations are moving on that path, from your experience, what factors did you consider when you decided to move towards this digital key account management route?
Sure. So, the often mistake which happens is specifically within the sales context. Companies leverage technology first without thinking about the process.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it's not just about technology, but also how much additional steps or work is it going to be adding on to the sales team, which comes in their way of selling.
Yeah.
Which creates friction for them when they are selling. And that's critical to evaluate, because that's the most uh, hurdle, I would say, for organizations to leverage technology better within the entire sales and I would talk marketing, because when you think about account management, it's not just the sales role. It's
Marketing.
the delivery, it's the operations, it's the marketing, and the entire organization from that. How do you create a frictionless process and seamless, rather than adding a lot of hoops and hula hoops for people to drive that? So for us, as I gave an example, we started off this process very early on, where we started with the process and we started evolving the process, where people started seeing the value of the process and the value of account management. They didn't see the value of a technology, because it's very difficult to propose technology, right? Because all of us are today surrounded by tech in a significant way, and we want less tech rather than more tech. So the process was already there, but how do you scale and make it less cumbersome for the sales team and bring in, I would use that word, automation, to an extent where they don't have to fill in details twice, or managing different tools for account and for their opportunity funnel. How does it all integrate? I think that became an easy one for us, because we were able to integrate it within the current Salesforce automation platform, which we have. And that became a success for us. And we continue to use that. We continue to leverage that. And one of the interesting things which is happening is now my own team has started leveraging data to start having that conversation with me. Okay, so that's a difference. And they are seeing patterns, they are seeing trends, they are seeing changes happening. When you are all that innate knowledge which all of us have about our accounts, about our process, about how our clients or point of contacts behave, now all of that is now translated and digitally stored. Now you can start seeing patterns, all that become visible in front of you. And that becomes more interesting and more engaging when you're having those conversations.
I think seeing is believing for them also, and kind of insights that they would have got, which they wouldn't have imagined also, that those opportunities existed. But like you mentioned, there are multiple stakeholders involved in this, right? Both from an internal usage standpoint, teams, as well as how the buyer behavior is also changing in this entire landscape. And while technology is an enabler, the process is also equally important, and things like that, which you rightly mentioned. So while you went on this journey, I'm sure there would have been certain challenges that you encountered. Right. So if you were to share some of the key challenges that you encountered during this journey, and probably how did you go about championing the adoption in-house?
Sure. See, I will not say everything was hunky-dory, right? Everything was a smooth ride. We also had our own share of learnings, challenges along the way. At the end of the day, we work with humans and we work
Mm,
with human behaviors, and it's hard to change. So sometimes you do have to leverage the power of stick. And
mm.
when I say that, not in a wrong way or a condescending way, but
Yeah.
how do you build those processes, governance, and reporting where you equally measure everyone based on that? And I
Mm,
strongly believe, you can manage things if you can measure it right.
true.
uh, so how do you bring those measurements and make it black and white for everyone? So when I'm evaluating a person's performance,
Mm,
I'm not just evaluating a person's performance based on their pipeline, based on their pipeline efficacy, sales velocity, outcomes, but I'm also measuring them on the overall being a organization player and an organization, I would say, uh, a person who believes in this organization and is participating in the organization processes.
mm, mm,
So we have that also built into the process. So people, I would not say compelled, but
mm,
it becomes part of their job, right? That
mm,
this is needed.
mm,
It is part of their job, and there is weight
mm,
from a performance benchmarking that they have to follow these processes.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
and it is, and the interesting thing, what we've also done is where we've integrated our finance organization within this entire process.
ah,
So for me, today, I don't have to challenge, or I don't get challenged back from
mm,
my sales team. Why am I getting this commission, or why my bonus is getting this impacted?
mm,
Because
mm.
everything is transparent.
That's good.
So you bring in transparency into the process, so
Mm,
they themselves know where they stand.
mm,
Because the
mm,
finance is integrated, they are able to see, and they are able to visualize where do they stand compared to their peers, where they can't see their peers in data, but at
mm,
least there is an industry benchmark or a company benchmark which they get to see where they are standing. So they
mm,
know how are they tracking.
mm, mm.
People often get into this process of appraisals, people often, and that's where my thought of stick, which I started off
Ah,
with
ah,
saying, you make people's performance visible and give them that power in their own hands,
mm,
rather than waiting it for the end of the quarter, end of the year, or whatever the process people, organizations will have.
true.
But how do you make it more real time?
Mm,
And
mm,
an organization our scale, when we are an analytics and an AI company where we
mm,
enable organizations to drive that,
mm.
one of the big thing was, why don't we only leverage our own data to make better sense of our own business?
True.
And that journey started 3 years ago for us. And
Mm,
that has been, as part of this, is visibility has been a critical facet for us.
mm, mm.
So today, I don't get to hear from anybody from my team saying, I would not use this, or this is coming in my way. It's part of their performance,
Ah.
uh, process.
Okay. So you make them as part of the process. You make it transparent. You make it visible, so that the buy-in also comes in through that.
Yeah.
Very
And
interesting.
people get rewarded. If people get
True.
rewarded, there are a lot of people now who have started sharing best practices on account management. So
Mm,
they get rewarded because they are becoming the corporate citizens who are driving those next level of change and transformation for us.
mm, mm,
So, they get equally rewarded also. So it's part of that carrot and stick, which you
mm.
would typically evolve, but you do it in a nice way. You don't
Nice.
do it in the control way, right? I mean,
Okay.
that's the, how do you make people part of the process, like you said, Karthik, rather than
Correct.
pushing something down their throat?
True. True. I think that's a key differentiator there. So Anis, you mentioned about how they're seeing a lot more data out there. It's visible, so there's transparency with respect to the performance evaluation and things like that. I'm sure there is also an impact of that from a business standpoint as well, with respect to an improvement in efficiency or from an outcome standpoint. So if you were to share some of the key benefits that you as an organization has seen by moving towards this digital account management route vis-a-vis the traditional approach which was being followed, what would those be?
See, with every organization, there are certain marquee accounts, which often get spoken about.
Hmm.
Uh, and then there are long tails, or there are accounts which have been recently acquired. One
Correct.
of the key marquee wins have been, which I have seen, we work with certain key industries.
Hmm.
Uh, and today, my sales leads or my practice leads are able to go ahead and see synergies between accounts and see synergies between the verticals, which they are able to leverage and cross pollinate. And we are seeing not those marquee accounts becoming bigger and bigger, but also a long tail having those drive better growth for the company as well. So that has been a significant change for us. Okay. For us as an organization, it's very interesting. What we have put together is, organization have corporate values. We have sales values also.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. And one of the values of our sales organization is customer centricity. Okay, which links to our organization values also. But for us, customer centricity is that how does our sales team member understand the customer better? Okay, and it's not just that, like really take it to the passion level. For example, if I'm working with a particular brand, many of my team members live and breathe those brands so much so that they will go and buy those products. They will be part of that experience, right? So customer centricity isn't that level of customer centricity because it gives you an opportunity to experience those brands as a consumer, not as just a person who's engaging from a relationship perspective.
True.
So, that opportunity, because to your point, when you're looking at an account, you look at an account from various facets, various organization departments, to have that intellectual conversation that, you beat your chest and say, this is what CoSpi can do for you. The real change happens is these are the needs, or these are the areas where we can work with you. Because I have experienced this, or I have seen your consumers experience this.
So that's interesting.
And I can have that real business conversation with that individual who's sitting on the opposite side. So we are seeing that at scale happening because I can see that transitions happening between 2 accounts, 3 accounts, and that really helps us scale. And that's what we are seeing as an impact of leveraging digital key account management practices.
Okay. No, this was very interesting. I'd never seen customer centricity as part of the sales values, and then the sales team actually going to that extent of living and breathing that customer's brand day in and day out. So that's fabulous to know that. So Anis, as a wrap-up question for you, right? So like we were having this conversation, a lot of organizations want to move that route, but they are apprehensive. They probably don't know how to sell the business case internally, or what is the kind of impact that it could make, or the kind of opportunities that a digital account management can actually create for them. So for our listeners out there, what's that advice that you would give them to make this shift towards digital account management?
See, both ABS and ABM, Karthik, today are not like a net new novel practices. If you just simply, if you Google it right now, you would get a lot of frameworks, a lot of practices, and there are a lot of conversations which are around there. So one success or one criteria which I would give is, before you adopt any technology, try to go ahead and incorporate a process and do it at a smaller scale, like a pilot or a POC, where you pick up a couple of accounts, pick up a handful of accounts, depending upon how big your organization is. And understand those processes, understand those hindrances, and understand the value which you're able to incorporate it, and live and breathe that, right? It's not just adopting an ABS, account-based selling, or an account-based marketing approach. So how do you first do that? See the value, and then try to go ahead and scale it up further within the company by leveraging a technology to help you scale up. And I think that is a success, right? And when you do that from an ABS or an ABM perspective, understand and map how you're able to go ahead and drive revenue goals, because that's the only goal which should matter here. Not everything else is secondary in my mind. If you can't do that, all of these programs will be a failure. And today, specifically in B2B, relationship based selling and consultative based selling has become far more important. And today, you can do that with ABS and ABM effectively. So that will be my recommendation to anybody who's thinking about, you don't have to go ahead and put together, leverage the frameworks or leverage the business case study frameworks, which are external. I think the best use case is do it within your own organization at a smaller scale, implement it, see how it works, and then look forward to scale it as you move forward.
Yeah. So I think for me personally, the learning from this is basically three P's which they need to look into. One is firstly have the process right on how to go about doing this entire thing before you bring on the technology element to it. Two, involve the people as part of the process itself, so that they see the transparency in that, they see the impact that it can make for them, and hence the adoption will be better. And third would be do a pilot. First, take a bunch of accounts, try it out internally, see how the learnings are from that, and then you go and scale it up. So, Ani's wonderful conversation. Thanks for all these valuable insights, which I'm sure will help a lot of our listeners out there waiting to make that shift to digital account management a lot more easier. Thank you.
Now, thank you, Karthik, for having me here. I hope the listeners get some value from this conversation today.
Absolutely. Thank you.